Oh, and that might even creep in. It is 2-1. Goodness me. Absolute. 2 goals in 2 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Socceroos have outdone themselves. We thought it couldn't get any worse after that first international window, but seemingly we just don't know what the are doing. We are in some of the worst form I have ever seen out of the Socceroos side, and I thought it would be a perfect time to make a YouTube video when I'm about to leave for Unite round in a matter of hours. So instead of packing, I'm collecting my thoughts, and we're going to put it into this YouTube video, which I'm going to try and keep short, but will probably end up being closer to an hour. So here it is. We're talking about the entire year of 2024 and why this is one of the Socceroos' worst years on record. Alrighty guys, it's me, Alex from the Back Four Podcast, and just before we start this video, and well, I guess kick on into this video, I just want to say, make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoy this longer form content. I'm going to be doing more content on the Socceroos going forward because we are just a steaming pile of shit. So there's definitely going to be some more content coming out soon, but this video is going to be a bit rushed, like I said, because I've only got a few hours to record it because I'm flying out to Sydney very soon. So let's get it started with the first sort of set of games of 2024, the 2024 Asian Cup. Going into the 2024 Asian Cup, Australia were coming off the back of 3 recent wins, a 7-0 win over Bangladesh and a 1-0 win over Palestine World Cup qualifying, and then a 2-0 friendly win in a pre-season warm-up match against Bahrain. We also had a very favourable group, being one of the better ranked sides in Asia, drawing Uzbekistan, Syria, and India. Now, while I was worried that this could cause some complications, especially in the Uzbekistan game, luck would be on our side as they were missing their best player Shomurodov, and Syria are a shadow of the former selves that they were, that used to cause a lot of problems for the bigger Asian sides. So I was really confident that we'd be able to put in a good performance, especially with a favourable draw, and hopefully get out of the group with no problems whatsoever. However, before the match even started, we already saw a few problems that had really frustrated us throughout the Graham Arnold era of management, such as his selections of players such as Aziz Behich over Jordan Boss, who is in form at the moment, and Mitch Duke persisting at striker, despite him not having any sort of effective output for the national team outside of a friendly goal against Bahrain. However, despite these annoying picks for the lineup, we persisted in a game that we 100% should have been dominating against India, who are a much weaker side, especially now that Sunil Chhetri was into his late 30s and was not going to be causing any serious problems, hopefully, for the Socceroos. We were ready to get our Asian Cup campaign off to a flying start. Now, for any neutral who saw the stats at the end of the game, you would be assuming that Australia were the dominant side, winning 2-0, holding majority of the possession, and tripling India's completed passes. However, this was simply not the case, and there's a few reasons why. The major problems in this game came from the way that we approached our creative structure. Now, Australia in this game attempted over 40 crosses, only completing 13, which is a 31% success rate for crosses. That is awful for a normal team, but for Australia versus India, especially considering some of the aerial presence that we do have, it is absolutely disgraceful. We were very poor and uninspiring when it came to our actual sort of creativity, and it didn't help that our midfield consisted of Connor Metcalf and Jackson Irvine being our main creative outlets. It simply wasn't good enough, and we didn't have any actual attacking mids. All the while, Alex Robertson, who is easily our most promising player in the entire country, was left at home rather than getting selected by Graham Arnold for the Asian Cup when he desperately wanted the spot. This was an incredibly poor decision by Graham Arnold, especially considering that he was chasing Christian Volpato, who has said on numerous occasions that he's not ready for a Socceroos call-up. He spent majority of his time chasing Volpato, trying to convince him, while forgetting that Alex Robertson, who in my opinion is just as good, if not better, than Christian Volpato, was begging for the call-up and a chance to prove himself on the international stage. This was a huge, huge mistake on Arnold's part, and it showed in the fact that we couldn't create any good chances. In the match, we had 28 shots. 22 of those came inside our own area. Despite that, we only created 2 big chances the entire game against India. That is awful. And if you don't know what that means, It means that we had 40 plus crosses. We had well over 15 set pieces, but we couldn't create anything of substance. We only won 2-0, which is very narrow considering that it took us until the 50th minute through Jackson Irvine and a bit of a defensive error from India to even be able to get to that point. Geordie Boss got us our second goal well into the 70th minute, and he sealed the game off and we ended up winning 2-0. But the signs were already there that there were serious problems with this Socceroos side that needed to be considered going into the next two group games. Next up was Syria, and this is a game that I was a bit more worried about after watching the India game and seeing the obvious problems that we had. But I was glad that Arnold finally came to his senses and started Jordan Boss in this second game, especially after he scored us the winner against India. Never mind. He started Jordan Boss at left winger. He started our left back at left wing, while taking off Craig Goodwin, who was probably our only sort of good creative outlet that first game, and benching him completely. All the while, he persisted with Mitch Duke at striker for no reason whatsoever, and also persisted with the same creative outlet of Jackson Irvine and Connor Metcalf, which gave us absolutely nothing outside of a lucky goal in the first game. And I understand sometimes you need luck, but when you have zero creative outlet for the entire game, you can't always rely on luck. However, luck is what we needed and what we received. 4.5 minutes in, Syria would hit the post, causing nerves to rupture through the Australian lineup, and it would take all the way until the second half for Australia to get their only shot on target of the entire game. That's right, in 63% possession, as well as doubling the amount of Syrian passes for the entire game, Australia managed one shot on target. Some beautiful creative work by Martin Boyle down the right wing, and it luckily deflected and fell for Jackson Irvine, who took a nice touch and poked it past the Syrian goalkeeper to make it 1-0, and that's how the game would be sorted out, with Australia taking home their second win of the tournament, although it was incredibly lucky and incredibly painful to watch as we created virtually nothing the entire game and had to sit through more of Graham Arnold's terrible tactical style. Going into the final group stage game against Uzbekistan, it's almost as if Graham Arnold heard our prayers. He finally dropped Mitch Duke from the starting lineup, although he persisted with starting Jordan Boss, our best left back, at left wing, while keeping Aziz Bayech at left back, which was another stupid decision. It didn't work in the first game, and I don't think it was going to work. Well, I didn't think it was going to work in this game when I saw the starting lineup, so let's see how that ended up going. It took until the 40th minute for anything of note to happen for either side, and it was Cassini Yengi with some brilliant dribbling skill off of the left-hand side after replacing Mitch Duke in the starting lineup today that saw Australia earn a penalty on the 45th minute that was converted by Martin Boyle to bring us up to a 1-0 lead. However, despite those positives in the first half, including a late flurry into injury time, which saw us get about 3 or 4 decent chances, we created absolutely nothing for the rest of the game. That was our only shot on target and our only chance created being from the penalty, meaning that we did absolutely nothing with the possession advantage and the passing advantage that we indeed had against Uzbekistan, and Graham Arnold towards the second half decided to set off and soak up some Uzbeki pressure, which cost us dearly in the 79th minute. It was left back Aziz Bayech who got in the spot over Jordan Boss that lost his man, and Turgumbayev scored a header at the back post to equalise for Uzbekistan and make it 1-1 going into the last 10 minutes of the game. Luckily for the Socceroos, despite being incredibly poor this game, we managed to see it out and draw 1-1 in our final group stage game, securing top spot and most likely getting a favourable draw in the round of 16, although this was a terrible result for us. We played absolutely awfully, not just this game, but the entirety of the group stage of the Asian Cup, and I was seriously worried for who our next opponent was going to be. Throughout the entire group stage, there was little to no positives for the entirety of the Australian team. Jordan Boss looked good despite playing out of position for 2 of the 3 games. Even though I thought he should have been our left back and could have stopped that goal for Uzbekistan, I was still proud of how he was performing, but was concerned that he was starting over Craig Goodwin, who is easily our best player. Cassini Yengi was showing to be a massive positive, especially when he was starting over Mitch Duke. I thought he was absolutely phenomenal in that game against Uzbekistan and single-handedly got us our goal, or our penalty at least, that saw us draw 1-1. However, there were many more negatives that needed to be addressed. Graham Arnold got his selections wrong consistently. Starting Mitch Duke for the first 2 games was an absolutely awful decision and gave us no output in the middle. Not starting Craig Goodwin against either Syria or Uzbekistan showed that we clearly had no creative output off of the left-hand side despite having Jordan Boss there, who was effective at times. And starting Aziz Bayic cost us that last-minute goal against Uzbekistan, which I was not happy about. On top of this, his midfield selections for the entire tournament were proving to be bad, as Jackson Irvine and Connor Metcalf were simply just not creating chances, which was forcing us to whip in copious amounts of crosses that were ultimately leading to nothing. I don't remember us scoring a single goal from a cross this entire tournament, or this entire group stage at least, and we hit well over 70 alone in the group stage, which was absolutely ridiculous. We had no sort of creative output, and that was purely down to Graham Arnold's tactical play. It was absolutely awful and allowed no freedom for our attackers, or space at least, to attempt to create literally anything. On top of all of this, Matt Ryan was looking exceedingly poor in goal this tournament with a number of blunders, which may have been down to the fact that he was using a protective face mask, but overall, he was not looking good, and I was seriously regretting the fact that we decided not to bring along Mitch Langerak. Despite all of this, we managed to draw Indonesia in the round of 16, which I was very, very happy about. Indonesia were a lower class team compared to the Socceroos. They're a very young team and had a lot of promising talent, but I knew that the Socceroos were good enough quality to beat them, even despite our poor performances in the first 3 group stage games. I was excited to see what we could muster up in the round of 16. However, our frustrations continued going into the game, with the starting lineup being shown that Cassini Yengi was dropped for Bruno Fornaroli, seemingly out of nowhere. On top of this, Jordan Boss was remaining at left wing instead of bringing back Craig Goodwin, despite the fact that we had no creative output. Luckily, though, we were doing this against Indonesia, who are a team that weren't very defensively strong, or tall for that matter, so I was hoping that Graham Arnold was at least going to be able to scuff out something and we would get a positive result. Australia started out very poorly, and current Brisbane Roar striker Rafael Stroik nearly put Indonesia ahead in the 5th minute, with a strike hitting the roof of the netting and Australia breathing a sigh of relief. Only 6 minutes later, in the 11th minute, Australia would find their opening goal, with Jackson Irvine attempting to put in a cross, leading to a hilarious own goal that saw us get a 1-0 lead. A bit of luck once again falling our way in an important time in an important game. Our first shot on target of the game came in the 44th minute when Gethin Jones put a deep cross into Martin Boyle, who was left unmarked at the back post, who scored a diving header to make it 2-0 to the Socceroos. Once again, it was concerning that it was taking us so long to actually create chances of substance, and even then it took us until the 44th minute against Indonesia to get our first shot on target, but we were 2-0 up going into the break, positive signs going into the second half. It took until the 88th minute for our next shot on target to come, which was a header by Jackson Irvine, which was saved by the Indonesian keeper, but fell to Craig Goodwin, who converted to make it 3-0 to Australia. And 2 minutes later, in the 90th minute, Harry Sutar would score a header off of a set piece, a long-awaited goal for our set piece king, and Australia would see out the match 4-0, winning against Indonesia. Now, there were plenty of negatives from this game, despite us winning 4-0, and we'll get into those just now. The major problem that we had against Indonesia was once again the fact that we weren't creating enough chances. Now, we did have 5 big chances created the entire game, which was more than we had in the entirety of the group stage. However, let's not forget that these chances came, 1 at the end of the first half, which was our first shot on target of the game, and then 3 big chances in the final 2 minutes. That is not good enough. It's simply not good enough, because that is an entire block of the first half, an entire block of the second half, that we did virtually nothing. We had 7 shots the entire game and didn't even dominate on possession or in passes. We won possession 51% to 49%, and we won passes 350 to 349. That is so incredibly close, meaning that we couldn't even stamp dominance on Indonesia, who, let's not forget, had plenty of chances on the break. They didn't have anything of substance, but they still had nearly just as many shots as we did the entire game, which was absolutely ridiculous considering that we still ended up winning 4-0. In the quarterfinals, we would play South Korea, an incredibly tough opponent, probably the second best team in all of Asia, in my opinion. This was going to be a massive test, unlike anything we've experienced yet. However, there was one big boost for the Socceroos. Graham Arnold had finally seen the light and stopped with his dumbass decision-making with the starting lineup, and put Craig Goodwin back on the left wing. Never mind. He's kept in Aziz Behich. He's brought back Kai Rouse over Cameron Burgess to partner Harry Souttar, which means that we now also have Nathaniel Atkinson at right back, thankfully, but we once again do not have Riley McGree in the midfield. On top of that, Graham Arnold apparently thought that we hadn't suffered enough and decided that this would be the perfect time for Mitch Duke to come back in to the starting lineup. I want to cry. However, it only took until the 18th minute for Craig Goodwin to finally show why he deserves to be starting in the Socceroos lineup with some incredible individual work that forced a shot and a risky save from the South Korean keeper, which forced it right into the middle of the goal. Connor Metcalf now had a chance to convert from 10 yards and put us 1-0 in the lead against South Korea, and he shanked it horribly wide. But that didn't matter, because in the 40th minute, on the stroke of halftime, Craig Goodwin would find a volley at the back post assisted by Nathaniel Atkinson that would put us 1-0 ahead of South Korea in this massive game. But then the game changed. Graham Arnold decided to sit off for the rest of the match and made a number of substitutions, including in the 73rd minute, taking off Nathaniel Atkinson, who is probably having the game of his career, and replacing him with Liam Miller. And this absolutely stupid decision to sit off completely and soak up South Korean pressure while we were dominating the game beforehand proved costly, as in the 94th minute, Liam Miller went in for a tackle and conceded a penalty. In the 96th minute, it was converted by Hwang Hee-chan to make it 1-1. We had just blown a lead against South Korea in the biggest game of the tournament so far. Graham Arnold and his awful tactical decision-making had just cost us a win against South Korea. From that moment on, there was no coming back. South Korea continued to pile on the pressure early into the first half of added time, and in the 104th minute, Hyunmin Son would score a direct free kick, and that would be the last major opportunity of the game. Australia knocked out of the Asian Cup in the quarterfinals. There's just so much that I had to talk about this campaign because it was one of the worst managerial just shitfests over the entire course of the month that I had to watch this absolute dog shit from the Socceroos. First of all, some of the player performances were god-awful. Jackson Irvine, despite scoring 2 goals and creating an own goal against Indonesia, was dog shit the entire tournament. And anyone who watches the game and doesn't just look at highlights would tell you that he was below par. He created absolutely nothing. His work rate at times wasn't good enough. The exact same with Connor Metcalf, was just not good enough. Created absolutely nothing. Aziz Behich was poor defensively, a shadow of the player that he was at the 2022 World Cup. Matt Ryan was not good enough. Was a shadow of his prime, which is really, really disappointing to see. And do not even get me started on Mitch Duke. Mitch Duke might just be one of the worst Socceroos strikers I've seen in recent years. He offered absolutely nothing the entire tournament. Outside of that friendly goal against Bahrain, he hasn't scored this entire year for the Socceroos, despite playing in nearly every single available game that we had. That is outrageous for a striker, and it's simply not good enough. But what also baffles me was Graham Arnold's insistence to stick with him through thick and thin, despite always getting consistently poor performances out of Mitch Duke. He offered nothing, no creativity, no sort of effective hold-up play, no aerial presence that was to note, and awful finishing when it mattered, including in that game against South Korea when he missed multiple good opportunities. It was absolutely awful. And that's just the tip of the iceberg for everything that went wrong with Graham Arnold. And for the few positives I can draw out of that, I can also point at how they could have been so much better if it wasn't for Graham Arnold's absolute idiocy. Craig Goodwin absolutely tore it up in the game against South Korea, was the only reason that we created anything or had any chance of winning that game. Yet, we decided to take him off. and we decided to bench him throughout the group stage for no reason whatsoever. Jordan Boss playing at left wing over Craig Goodwin when he was easily our best left back when he played there. For no reason whatsoever, he was put up to left wing over at least some of the much more promising actual left wingers that we brought to the tournament with us. There was absolutely no point. But the signs were there even before the tournament, because just look at this list of players that we decided to bring to the Asian Cup. What is this squad selection? One thing that I can consistently say Graham Arnold has no idea what he's doing with is his selection of national team squads. We decided to bring 4 defensive midfielders and 4 strikers to an Asian Cup campaign. There was no need for 4 strikers. We play a 1-striker formation. There's no need for 4 defensive midfielders when we can't create chances. What is the point of any of this decision making from Graham Arnold? We only bought 3 centre-backs. We bought 4 right-backs. I don't understand any of this at all. It makes genuinely no sense as to how you can look at this and exclude players like Alexander Robertson, like Dennis Genro, any sort of player that would have helped us bridge that creative gap, and not starting Riley McGree when we needed him to start, persisting with Jackson Irvine, who, yes, got some clutch goals throughout the group stage, but offered absolutely nothing outside of those goals. No creativity, no proper progressive passes, no sort of creative outlet at all in the team. We relied on crosses and Craig Goodwin brilliance to get us anywhere that entire tournament, and it was absolutely disgraceful. On top of this, South Korea then went to lose to Jordan, who then lost to Iran, who then lost to Qatar. I am confident that we would have been able to beat any of those sides if we had just gotten past South Korea. But obviously we didn't, because of the piss poor decision making for Graham Arnold. Now, look, I know that the common decision making when you're winning a game and need to close it out is, oh, let's put everyone back and just soak up pressure. The only problem is when you have a team like South Korea who are so good at attacking, when you put everyone back and give them possession of the ball, they will always create chances. And a stupid tackle from Liam Miller that didn't need to be made cost us a penalty, and we were never out of the gates in extra time. We never had a chance. And it's absolutely piss poor. From Liam Miller, from Graham Arnold especially. Graham Arnold, I am just, oh my God. All I could have hoped at the time was that the FFA would have sacked him after this show at the Asian Cup, because it was just not good enough. But the FFA made the decision to stick by Graham Arnold as the head coach going into World Cup qualifiers. A decision that I thought was ridiculous at the time, and a decision that I think is ridiculous even now. And pretty much any Socceroos fan that knows quite literally anything would tell you the exact same. After that poor Asian Cup campaign, we continued our World Cup qualifications. Now, we went into 2 matches against Lebanon, and Graham Arnold released this squad. Now, while I do like a number of the picks here, I have one simple question. Why did we bring 5 strikers? Graham Arnold is notorious for playing the exact same 1-striker formation every single time. He bought 5 strikers for our international window for our games against Lebanon. What is the point of bringing 5 strikers? And why, oh why, are we not using those spots to give to young international talents? Once again, no Alex Robertson called up. I don't know what the point of that is. I don't know why we are not giving these spots to young Australian talents that can use them to propel themselves to better club careers, or to just even get them tied down to the national team, like in the case of Alex Robertson, who up until this point had only played in friendly matches for us. It makes no sense whatsoever for me. Despite this, Australia trudged on and managed to get 2 big wins over Lebanon, a 2-0 win at home and a 5-0 win away in Lebanon. There were plenty of nice moments over this international break, with players such as John Iredale getting his first ever goal for the Socceroos, Craig Goodwin continuing his fantastic form, Aiden Hrustic getting an assist in his return to the Socceroos lineup, and Cassini Yengi, considering that he was dropped numerous times for Mitch Duke, getting back into the swing of it and also scoring. Thankfully, the next window would see a much more exciting squad and a nice change of pace from the usual Graham Arnold squads that would see a lot more young talent being called up to the Socceroos to make their debuts. The likes of Nestori Irankunda, the returns of Daniel Arzani, Cami Devlin, debuts for Josh Nisbet and Apostolos Stamatolopoulos, as well as the return of Matthew Leckie and a debut for Alessandro Cacciati, were massive inclusions for our next round of games against Bangladesh and Palestine. Once again, Cassini Yengi continued his fine form for the national team, scoring 3 times over the course of the window, once against Bangladesh and twice against Palestine in Perth. Adam Taggart also making his return to the Socceroos lineup, got a goal and an assist in Perth. Aiden Hrustic scoring against Bangladesh was nice to see, and Nestori Irankunda getting his first ever Socceroos goal against Palestine with a penalty was an absolutely brilliant moment for everyone in the stadium watching. We were so happy for him, and we are sure that Nestori is going to have a long career with the Socceroos. That is absolutely amazing to see. But now it was time for a 3-month break for the football off-season, and when we were coming back, we were going to have our new group for the next round of World Cup qualifiers in what I'm sure is going to be many more promising performances for the Socceroos going into the new year. Now, there were major concerns on my part around Australia's group, considering that we were coming up against Japan, who are easily the best team in Asia by a long shot, and Saudi Arabia, who have notoriously caused us problems on numerous occasions and had relatively on and off form, a poor lead up to the actual Asian World Cup qualifiers, but were still a very good team and still the team that previously, a year and a half ago, had beaten Argentina at the FIFA World Cup. This was going to be a tough group. Rounding out the rest of the group were Indonesia, China, and Bahrain, and while I was concerned that some of these sides might have caused us a few problems here and there, given our inability to break down smaller sides under Graham Arnold's tenure, I did think that these would be comfortable games that we should be winning, and we could make a relatively comfortable push towards second place, or the top 2 at least, to get through automatically to the World Cup. Our first squad was then released for our games against Bahrain at home and Indonesia away, and I can't lie, I had many mixed emotions on it. Now, we did have a few players out through injury, including Jordan Boss, who was going to be a big loss for us, but once again, Graham Arnold decided not to pick a proper attacking midfielder, once again opting not to pick Alex Robertson when he should have deserved to have gotten a call-up, and once again, opting for some questionable picks in the front line. Now, my major concern came from one particular pick who I saw as a massive step backwards for the national team. Our Mobile. Now, listen, our Mobile has been a serviceable Socceroos forward in the past, keyword in the past, but I see no justification as to why he got a call-up to play these round of fixtures, or even why he got a squad call-up at all over a younger player who may have been more deserving or more needing of a national team call-up. And look, I understand that this came off of him scoring 4 or 5 goals in the Swiss League Cup, but this is still not justification for a national team call-up when you had someone like Daniel Arzani, who was on the absolute form of his life at Melbourne Victory at the time. I just don't see any point whatsoever behind this call-up, just at all. It made no sense to me. However, it didn't take long for my same fears to be confirmed going into the Bahrain game, as Graham Arnold once again proved to me that he is incompetent of picking a proper starting lineup. First of all, Connor Metcalf at cam is just a joke in itself. I don't know what we're still doing with this national team pick, trying to turn Connor Metcalf into this sort of creative midfielder, but it hasn't worked, and it never will work, because he's not a good enough attacking player for it. Secondly, we brought along 2 right-backs in this window, that being Lewis Miller and Thomas Deng, a serviceable right-back at times, more naturally a centre-back by trade, but he can play right-back. So why did we start Alessandro Cacciati, arguably our best centre-back at the time, at right-back, a position that he had never played before? 9.5 minutes into the game, and we were caught out on the counter by Bahrain. Some poor defending. Alessandro Cacciati had to come across and cover to a more natural centre-back position, which left the left winger open wide for a shot. Luckily for us, he took his sweet-ass time, didn't get a shot off, and it was still 0-0. Quite literally nothing happened for either side for the entire game until in the 76th minute, this happened.
Exactly the plan.
Yengi dives. Oh, it's a red. Straight red cards.
We'd just gotten Cassini Yengi sent off after a stupid high boot, man. But it couldn't get much worse for us, I thought, at this moment. And then in the 88th minute, it did get much worse.
For first time, they don't want a time waste because they could be in here. Oh, they are! Deflected past Matt Ryan.
A Harry Souttar own goal had just seen us lose to Bahrain at home in the Gold Coast in our first match of our third round World Cup qualifiers. This was supposed to be the easiest game out of the lot, and we had just lost it 1-0. I could not believe what I was seeing. I was absolutely seething, and rightfully so. This was absolutely disgraceful. And after piss poor tactical decision making by Graham Arnold and just the decision to keep him on as the national team coach after underperforming at quite literally everything he's ever done with this national team. And guess what? It didn't get any better because straight after that, a 0-0 snooze fest with Indonesia managed to see us not only not follow up with a win, but seemingly outdo ourselves with the amount of bullshit that we are putting up. 19 shots and nothing of note. Nothing whatsoever. I couldn't believe my eyes. 2 games in against Bahrain and Indonesia, easily the 2 worst teams in the group, and we hadn't even scored a goal. I was astounded, and I was begging for the FFA to take some action, to just do something to help us out. Sack Graham Arnold, please. Now is the time to do it. Now is the opportunity, the justification to make the sacking. But in the end, it would be Graham Arnold that would do us all a favour. The FFA came out in multiple interviews saying that they were backing Arnie and that they trusted him to turn the form around. But then Graham Arnold came out on September the 19th and announced that he was leaving as the Australian national team head coach, and I was ecstatic. For too long had we dealt with his piss poor tactics, him single-handedly throwing away games that we were dominating and not being able to conjure up any meaningful chances against weak teams because Graham Arnold only knows how to play games in which he's the underdog. He can't form together any sort of good attacking identity in his team, and it was so evident throughout this entire year up until this point. And finally he was gone. But what was disappointing is the fact that this wasn't even the FFA making this decision. This was Graham Arnold himself choosing to step away, seeing the writing on the wall. And that is what's pissing me off about this organization that oversees football in this country, and how fucking spineless they are to not have to make a decision when it matters the most. And then came the long wait. Who would Australia announce as their men's international team head coach going into the next international break? Now, there were plenty of options out there and some very exciting ones. Lots of people were throwing down the name of Hervé Renard, the former Saudi Arabian national team coach that oversaw their win against Argentina and near progression from the round of to the round of 16 in the 2022 World Cup. He'd just come off of coaching the French women's national team at their Women's World Cup and was looking for a new job in men's international management, and many people were touting him for the Socceroos job. And I was very excited by this idea. I thought he would have been a brilliant coach, and he would have instilled that sort of aggression and sort of attacking ballsiness that we really needed in the national team going forward. And then decision day came, and we had heard rumors of it, and we'd seen leaks, and we were praying that it wasn't true, but it was announced that Tony Popovic would be the next coach of the Australian national team. Talk about 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Look, I love Tony Popovic for his time at the Perth Glory. He'll always hold special places in my heart. But this is a guy that has recently, with Melbourne Victory, put up some very poor footballing displays. And I don't think anyone can dispute that. Now, look, I think he's a better coach than Graham Arnold. No doubt in my mind. But I still don't see the reasoning behind this choice. Yes, he's an Australian coach, but we really needed someone with international experience to fully grasp at this job and man. It's just frustrating. It really is just frustrating seeing these kinds of poor decisions being made. But I was willing to give Popper the benefit of the doubt going into our game against China. Then he announced his first national team squad. Now, look, many people at the time were disappointed with some of these picks, but personally, I was ecstatic for the simple reason that it was a shake-up of what we had seen under Arnold. Some new, fresh, young, exciting picks such as Nishan Velupillay and some players getting their long overdue call to the national team such as Jason Guerrier. I was very, very excited to see what Popper could do, especially since he convinced Massimo Luongo to come out of international retirement. This was going to be great. Now, this China game was actually the first that I'd done a YouTube live stream for the Socceroos, and I think it's fair to say that I was not enjoying what happened around the 20th minute.
With Popper, because he strives normally having shorter strikers. Oh my God.
Are you serious, bro? How have we conceded to China?
We've just conceded to China! We're 1-0 down at home to China! What are we doing? They don't even have Wu Lei! I don't even know who the guy is! Oh my God, bro! Oh, you've got to be kidding!
Thankfully, we managed to recover quite nicely, with Lewis Miller managing to score on the stroke of half-time from a set-piece routine.
No doubt about it. We created nothing in opening play. Watch us score from a set piece here. Watch us score. Watch us score right here. Yes! Come on!
But there were plenty of signs that there was going to be some struggle here, especially the fact that we allowed China, with their only real chance of the first half, to get away and score in a promising position. It was going to be more of the same, wasn't it? Thankfully, Lord Emperor Craig Goodwin, starting at right wing, surprisingly, managed to save us all with an absolute thunder bastard of a strike from distance, a beautiful goal that saw us take a 2-1 lead.
Oh, what a shot! What a shot, Craig Goodwin! Oh my goodness! What a finish! Oh my God, I didn't even see... Mate, I just turn and look! He's driving the ball in the midfield, hits one from 35! What a shot!
And it was late substitute Nishan Velupillay who scored on his Socceroos debut in the 90th plus second minute to see out the game, a 3-1 win for the Socceroos on Tony Popovic's managerial debut. What a fantastic result for us. Alrighty, I'm back from Unite Round. Let's get this video finished. Going into the game against Japan, Tony Popovic opted for a very defensive lineup with a 5-back formation, including a quite defensive midfield, not much creativity, but it was to be expected going into a very tough game, and hopefully we were going to be able to secure a point against Japan or more going into what is easily the toughest game of our group so far. Now, while I could go into a big analysis on the entire game and everything that happened, if I'm being completely honest, not much did. The Socceroos only managed one shot the entire game, and it wasn't even on target. And we somehow squeaked out a 1-1 draw when we took the lead with an own goal for the Japanese team. And look, while there were a few positive signs in terms of our defensive structure and how well we did, overall, we did end up only getting a point as Cameron Burgess scored an own goal and the match ended 1-1. I was very interested to see what was going to be happening with the rest of the group games. Obviously, we looked better in terms of attacking in that China game, but we didn't create anything against Japan. We could barely hold on to the ball, and in terms of going forward, like I said, we only had one shot the entire game against Japan. So obviously, there were still heaps of problems that needed to be addressed, but I wasn't too negative thinking with what I was seeing so far from Tony Popovic. I agreed with his defensive setup against Japan, and I was very hopeful that things would turn around in our coming games. Going into the games against Saudi Arabia and our second match against Bahrain, Tony Popovic opted for this squad here. Now, there were plenty of interesting picks, such as Anthony Caceres getting his debut call up for the Socceroos, and a few players being brought back, such as Milos Degenek. But I was quite interested to see what he was going to roll with. Now, like I said, some of these picks are a bit strange, especially considering that this is the Socceroos in 2024. You wouldn't expect some of these players to sort of be where they are right now. But I was hopeful that with a tough game against Saudi Arabia that I viewed as a must-win, that we were going to be able to get a good performance out, considering that it was as well at home. And I was also interested to see if Tony Popovic could build off of the back of two impressive performances, one more so attacking-wise and one more so defensive-wise, going into the game against Saudi Arabia. Going into the Saudi Arabia game, we lined up with what I thought was honestly a really good setup. A back five, yes, but I was hopeful that Lewis Miller and Jordy Boss could offer us a lot out wide, as well as Aiden Hrustic and Riley McGree in behind Mitch Duke up top. And look, I know, Mitch Duke, but I was liking this sort of setup a lot more attacking-wise than I was Graham Arnold's setup. So honestly, I didn't really have a problem with it going into it, and I was really hoping that we could create some good chances, especially in the first half, as we've struggled to do so pretty much the entire campaign. And my prayers were answered as pretty much 18 minutes in, Mitch Duke managed to win a penalty for the Socceroos after colliding with the Saudi Arabian goalkeeper on the edge of the box. However, this was later overturned by VAR. We were given a free kick on the outside of the area. It was a good ball in. Harry Suter had a decent chance from about 10 yards out to fire us into the lead. He shanked it completely and sent it over the bar, and it remained 0-0. But the Socceroos didn't give an inch. We had heaps of good pressure on the Saudi Arabians, and with 6 minutes of added time at the end of the half, we knew that there was time to create chances. Chances came as a turnover at the edge of the box for the Saudi Arabian team fell to Mitch Duke, who only needed to really beat a defender who was lying on the floor and would then have a one-on-one with the keeper. However, he decided to, instead of trying to beat this player, to pass it sideways to Aiden Hrustic, allowing time for multiple Saudi Arabian defenders to get back. Hrustic then took a shot which was easily saved by the keeper. And at this point, I wanted to punch a hole in my monitor when watching this, because why the hell was Mitch Duke not attempting to go there? And I understand that he's not the fastest striker, that he's not the best at dribbling. The Saudi Arabian player is laying on the floor. The goal beckons for you. You are a striker. Have some goddamn balls, man. But he lays it off to Hrustic. The pass to Hrustic wasn't good. He pretty much, instead of passing it in front of Hrustic, passes it sort of in line with him. So Hrustic can't go forward to receive the ball. He has to come sideways to receive it. Kills all the momentum, and we missed out on that chance. Although we had one more chance on the stroke of the half, the ball falls to Jackson Irvine. He's driving through. An option at the back post is Aiden Hrustic. He takes it on his own, and he puts it over the bar again. Once again, we are unable to score these kinds of chances. Jackson Irvine has been exceedingly poor for God knows how long now when it comes to converting chances, when it comes to quite literally doing pretty much anything. And Mitch Duke is just, I've said enough about Mitch Duke. Although I was happy when looking at some of McGree's positioning and the work rate that he was offering off the ball, and Aiden Hrustic was getting into some really good positions. I was very, very happy with that. So it left me hopeful that we would find something in the second half. The Socceroos then had a counter-attack leading late into the second half. Super sub Brandon Borello managed to get in behind with a beautifully timed run, sweats it across to Riley McGree, but somehow it is blocked by the Saudi Arabian defender, and the score remains 0-0. We managed to get no chances off until late in the game when Saudi Arabia had a set piece in the 93rd minute. It was then whipped in, a scuffle in the box led to a Saudi Arabian shot, and they took the lead with 2 minutes to go. Except thankfully for us, it went through the legs of a Saudi Arabian player who was deemed to be in an offside position, and the goal was disallowed, which led to a hilarious photo of the entirety of the Saudi Arabian team crowded around the linesman who gave it offside. It was a great photo. I was laughing my head off when I saw it. But it was once again a note to the Socceroos that we were exceedingly poor when defending set pieces, and that we were exceedingly poor when it came to converting chances. At least with Tony Popovic now, I can see that our chance creation is a lot better in terms of getting the ball into promising areas. but the finishing itself was a big problem. And we were going into our final game against Bahrain of the international window for 2024, and we needed a win desperately. The need for a win became even more apparent considering that Saudi Arabia then went to lose 2-0 to Indonesia, meaning that a Socceroos win against Bahrain, once again the lowest ranked team out of any team in our group, would then rocket us up to second place, putting us in an automatic qualification spot going into the second half of the group stage. Now, like I said, this was a massive game, and I was super excited to see how Tony Popovic would approach this. Hopefully, we were going to go at them attacking-wise and just create heaps of chances. I knew we could get something out of this game, so let's see how we went. A few changes were made to the lineups before the game, and I would be lying if I said that Tony Popovic didn't raise some serious doubts in my mind when looking at these lineups. Now, Jordi Boss was removed and replaced by Aziz Behich, and you guys know my thoughts by now on Aziz Behich. O'Neill was replaced in midfield by Cáceres, which I didn't really understand, but I wasn't too horrified by, considering that Cáceres is a good player. And Hayden Matthews was given his Socceroos debut, which I was happy about, but he was given it as a starting option over Jason Guerrier at right centre-back. Craig Goodwin was brought back in over Aiden Hustic. Now, Craig Goodwin, obviously not a right winger by trade, so I was curious to see how he would actually fit into this Popovic style of play as a starter, so I was hopeful that he would perform well, but I felt Hustic was done a bit hard done by, should I say. But I was still hopeful that we would get a good result against Bahrain and rocket ourselves up to second in the league. But one change that I haven't yet mentioned was Cassini Yengi returning to the starting lineup, and only 30 seconds in, he proved why he deserves that starting spot. A poor back pass from the Bahrain defense fell to Cassini Yengi, who calmly took it around the keeper and put it into the back of the net. 1-0 for the Socceroos in the opening minute. What a fantastic start in a must-win game. Australia had another good chance on the break only 20 minutes later. Anthony Cáceres with a beautiful tackle in midfield. McGree with the ball to Yengi, but it was slightly overshot and Yengi couldn't convert. We kept up with the good chances in the second half as a delivery from Riley McGree was a bit too high for Yengi to convert with a volley and a bit too low for a header. He then chested it and hit the crossbar to nearly put us up 2-0. Yengi was having a fantastic game and getting into really good positions, but McGree needed to sort out his crosses. However, anyone watching the game started to notice that the momentum was shifting fast in Bahrain's direction in the 65th minute. A good chance for them after a poor clearance from Harry Sutar, a great block by Cam Burgess to keep us in the lead 1-0, but we were allowing them to get back into the game and create chances, and it was only a matter of time until it would come back to bite us. And that time would be exactly 10 minutes later as a long ball from Bahrain fell to Cam Burgess, who failed to deal with it properly. It fell to Abdul Jabbar on the halfway line, who managed to chip Matt Ryan to make it 1-1, an outlandish, freakish goal that somehow got Bahrain back into the game. I was really hoping for a proper response, but what happened 2 minutes later broke my heart. A deep cross from Bahrain, Hayden Matthews with a poor header headed back towards his own goal, rocketed off of the post and fell to Abdul Jabbar, who managed to score a second goal to put Bahrain into the lead 2-1. We had dominated the game for the entirety of the match so far and had managed to concede 2 quick fire goals in 2 minutes to now see us out of the automatic promotion spots. By the grace of God, the Socceroos were given 10 minutes of added time to find an equaliser, and on exactly the 95th minute mark, Cassini Yengi managed to turn home a loose ball to make it 2-2, and we saw out the game as a 2-2 draw. Now, lots of fans were relieved by the fact that we didn't once again lose to Bahrain, but I was exceedingly pissed, and I still am, and rightfully so. Because whatever we just put up in that game was so indicative, so symbolic of all the dog shit that we've had to deal with as Socceroos fans for multiple years now, but especially over the last year and the last 2 years of the Graham Arnold era. First of all, to the Australian FA, this shit is on you just as much as it is anyone else. Your stupidity to not sack Graham Arnold after the 2022 World Cup. And look, I understand that some fans are like, well, he got us through. Oh, he got us through. Shut up. Just shut up. You can't look at just results. You have to look at how results are achieved, all right? The game against France, we started brilliantly. His poor tactical decisions caused us to concede 4 goals and lose that game. Against Tunisia, we weren't even dominating that game. We were equals. In some aspects, we were the worst team in that game out of the 2. And we somehow scraped a result, thankfully. Great, whatever. Denmark, we got patterned the entire game against a Denmark team that was severely underperforming. We managed to escape with a piece of Matthew Leckie brilliance to get us through to the game against Argentina. And against Argentina, we were piss poor the entire game until that last stretch of the match where Craig Goodwin scored off of a stupid deflection and Garen Qual nearly got us the equaliser. Apart from that, we showed absolutely nothing the entire tournament. And it was so clear to see. And look, I love the Australian national team as much as the next guy. I'm super passionate about this national team and I love it when we win. But I want us to win by playing good football. I want us to win by playing convincingly, by deserving to win games. I don't want to have to scrap my way to every single result because it's not sustainable. And the FA should have seen a lot earlier that this was not sustainable. It happened even before the World Cup, when we would struggle against teams like Oman, when we would lose to teams like China. It was not acceptable at all. And the Asian Cup was the perfect excuse to sack Graham Arnold for his dogshit managerial performances. I'm not looking to a manager of if they're worthy of their job because they can beat Bangladesh 7-0, because they can beat Palestine 5-0, you know? I'm looking to games that actually matter. The Asian Cup matters to me, to the Socceroos fans that actually care. So the fact that we barely beat India, we barely beat Syria, we didn't even beat Uzbekistan, we took till the 88th minute to actually show some balls against Indonesia, and we got just shut down completely by South Korea. And not because we were getting shut down the whole game. We were dominating that for a large portion of the game. And his stupid tactical decisions to sit off and allow pressure led to them getting an equaliser and us losing the game. I honestly could not believe that the FA had no balls to sack this man when he had single-handedly lost us the Asian Cup. And we had a very favourable side of the bracket. All we had to do was get past South Korea and we could have gotten to that final with Qatar. I'm certain of it. But no, his poor tactical decisions led to that loss and we missed out on yet another Asian Cup. Despite promising to be one of the biggest sides in Asia, despite promising to compete, we've gotten nowhere close since 2015, and I don't see us getting anywhere close unless this shit changes. And guess what? Under the FA, it's not going to change, because they are a mediocre organisation. They accept mediocrity in the highest degree. They don't care about achieving excellence. They don't care about developing the next, set of young Australian talents. Because if they did care, they would improve infrastructure. They would set proper things for young Australians to be able to come through. If you ever wonder why the young Australian touring teams that we send suck against teams like China, Indonesia, Thailand, Singapore, it's because these countries, Vietnam is another one, these countries actually give a shit about their young players. They want to see them develop. They want their senior team to be filled with these young, prosperous talents that can go on and have great careers. And you're seeing it with Indonesia, with how good they're starting to get now. You're seeing it with a lot of these other Southeast Asian countries that are taking those next steps. And where we're being left is in the fucking dust, because we're led by a bunch of incompetent wankers that care more about filling stadiums with casuals for Matildas games than they do about actually achieving long-term success, both with the Socceroos and the Matildas. And it is an absolute disgrace. And if you need any proof that the FA accepts mediocrity and is completely fine with mediocrity just bleeding through our entire system, look at the hiring of Tony Popovic, right? This is Tony Popovic, a man who just came off of losing the A-League Grand Final with Melbourne Victory. We had great options out there, international options, European coaches, South American coaches that could have came in and instilled a brilliant tactical style of attacking football to suit this younger generation of Socceroos talents coming through. We have brilliant attackers coming through the Socceroos. Nestri Irankunda, Garen Qual, Marco Tilio, some brilliant young players that need to be nurtured and given a proper opportunity to thrive. And what do? We bring in a defensive-minded coach. A defensive-minded coach. I could not believe what I was seeing, honestly. And you know what? The best performances we've had in this Asian Cup, or this World Cup qualified group stage, has been under Popovic. I'll give him that. A win against China, 3-1, fair enough. But I can't excuse the fact that the FA were not ambitious enough to look outside of their little circle, to look outside of the box, to go foreign for a foreign coach. I just couldn't believe it, and it's so disappointing. And look, I'm a Perth Glory fan. I love Tony Popovic, all right? He gave me some of the best years of my life as a Perth Glory fan. But the fact that he was given the national team job off of the back of losing the A-League Grand Final with Melbourne Victory, and then him rocking up with the same old defensive five-back bullshit that we've experienced, or that Melbourne Victory have been experiencing, which is quite literally the reason why they had the best squad in the A-League, in my opinion, last season, and still couldn't win the league title. It baffles me. It really baffles me. It really does. As a Socceroos fan, I'm disappointed. Purely because we should be winning these games easily, and we should have had second spot locked down by now. We should have beaten Indonesia, and we didn't. We should have beaten Bahrain on both occasions, and we didn't. And we should have beaten Saudi Arabia, and we didn't. That's 4 draws that should have been wins. And you know what? If we did get those wins, you know where we'd be? We'd be comfortably, very comfortably, in second place. We have 4 sides that are tied on points. Us, China, Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, and Bahrain as well, make that 5. All tied for the same amount of points in this group. Meaning that these next games against China, Japan, Saudi Arabia, and Indonesia are going to decide whether we even have a shot at going through to the World Cup. If we lose against Saudi Arabia and Japan, there is a serious possibility that we don't even make the top 3, that we just miss out on World Cup qualification altogether. And you know what? A small part of me just hopes that it happens. For the small reason, I want the FA to just look at this and look at a failed campaign, what a failure this campaign has been, and what a failure of a year this has been for the Socceroos, and just feel pure shame. Nothing but shame. So that's it. That is my comprehensive breakdown of 2024 and why this is the Socceroos', possibly the Socceroos' worst year on record. It took me a while to finish this. I had to come back from Unite round, and you know what? I'm just... I hope I don't have to... I'm so glad that I don't have to speak on the Socceroos until March, when our next set of games are. But you know what? I guarantee you'll see me at the end of March making a follow-up video about how our national team is exceedingly dog shit because we have people in charge that can't make a good decision to save their lives. And you know what? If we somehow lose Alex Robertson, and I know I speak about Alex Robertson a lot in this video, and it's since come out saying that he's made himself unavailable for selection, but to all you fucking 5 IQ in just dumbasses out there, right? This is directed to all you people on Twitter as well that say, oh, well, Alex Robertson, it's his fault that he's not making himself. Yeah, sure thing. Because when he was begging for a spot in that Asian Cup squad and for the World Cup qualifiers after, and we continually ignored him, what? Oh, now he doesn't want to trust us with his development. I'm shocked. I'm shocked that the player that we consistently did wrong by doesn't trust us with his development, while we're simultaneously chasing Christian Volpato, who time after time has not joined us for the international breaks, and that's not his fault. That's the fault of Italian football and wanting to keep their international youngsters there so that they don't prioritize international football over their Italian clubs, all right? That's not on Christian Volpato. I'm not going to give him shit for that. But the fact that we tried so hard to get Christian Volpato when we knew it wasn't possible, yet we just completely ignore Alex Robertson. It was an absolute joke. It's an absolute disgrace. And you know what? It's just another reason why I hate the FA as much as I do. But guys, I'm going to leave it there because the video is probably well near an hour by now. This is probably the longest video I've ever done on this channel, and for good reason. There was way too much to discuss. And you know what? I'm glad I've cleared everything up because now, hopefully, I don't have to talk about the Socceroos until March. And hopefully, the next time I am talking about them, I'm talking about how we've played brilliantly and we're going to be going to the World Cup. But until then, guys, I want to thank you all so much for your support on the channel. It's been absolutely amazing. I'm so happy that I'm in a position where I can create long-form content like this. And lads, if you have any ideas for any videos you want to see in the future, or any suggestions, or any just thoughts on the video, if you think I'm a dumbass because I don't think that Graham Arnold was the second coming of Jesus Christ, then let me know in the comments below. But apart from that, lads, thank you all so much for this video. I'll see you all in the next one. Catch us later.